You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Hristodoulou.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and today on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon, we are diving into the first game of week number 3 of the NFL season. Thursday night football, Dolphins coming into Buffalo to take on the Bills, and you're going to catch it where else but Amazon Prime. That being said, as I always do, I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear from you. Who do you like in this matchup? Who's coming out victorious? Is Mike McDaniel going to get fired at the end of this game? Maybe comes out and completely shocks the Bills at home. We're going to dive in and discuss it all. But as always, I invite you to discuss. And a reminder, no betting, no gambling advice here. We are talking football for the football fans. If that's not for you, that's fine. So be it. But we're just here to talk some football. That being said, we're coming off, I would say, a solid weekend. 10-6, nothing too crazy in week number 2, but we're sitting at 23-9 on the year. So doing a good job so far picking these straight up winners. And with the Dolphins and Bills, like I kind of just alluded to a second ago, I look at this one and I ask myself, is this do or die for Mike McDaniel? There is a good chance in my mind, especially if this game goes really sideways, that when this team flies back Thursday night, well into the wee hours of Friday morning, depending on how long it takes for them to get out of Buffalo and get into Miami, I feel like there's a good chance we are looking at a Miami Dolphins team minus Mike McDaniel. That's if things really go sideways. If it's a tight, close contest, I think maybe there's a chance he hangs on with a thread. Now, if the Dolphins obviously come out and pull off a big upset, that's a completely different conversation. But if there is a firing to happen with the Dolphins, I feel like this would be a good week to do it, just because you give whoever ends up stepping in, whether that's Anthony Weaver, the defensive coordinator, or maybe offensive coordinator Frank Smith stepping in and taking over as interim head coach. It would give them like a week and a half of prep coming off that mini bye, because you have the Thursday going into their next matchup the following week. So that is all like the kind of just thought process I have rolling around in my head regarding Mike McDaniel and the situation he's in. But as for the actual game itself, Miami's defense has not been great. They are top 10 in both passing and rushing yards allowed this season. They are second in points per game allowed, only to the Chicago Bears, having allowed 33 points in back-to-back games. And while the defense maybe looked like a little bit better, you could say, last week at certain points during the game against the New England Patriots, special teams obviously flubbing away after giving them a go-ahead a punt return score. They wind up allowing a kick return touchdown that ultimately put them behind and they were not able to come back from. I think for Miami's sake in this football game, if they want to come out victorious, if Mike McDaniel's trying to save his job in Miami and this team wants to get a win and upset in Buffalo, I think you need to try to win with ball control and running the football. Buffalo to this point in the season, and we'll get into the details of these numbers, but at this point in the season has allowed 338 yards rushing in total. That's 238 to Baltimore, and then another 100 yards that they allowed to the New York Jets. Now, if you want to narrow down that view a little bit when you're looking at just like running backs specifically and running back yardage, because Lamar is a decent chunk of the 238 against Baltimore, when you're looking at running backs specifically, they rank 11th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed to running backs specifically. Obviously now, the Baltimore Ravens have Derrick Henry, and I feel like that is kind of like the asterisk you need to add on to that number. Not every running back in the NFL is Derrick Henry. He is literally one of one. So finding that same success of Derrick Henry, especially coupled with the offensive scheme they run in Baltimore, is not necessarily going to happen with Miami. That being said, Miami does have, I would say, a capable starting running back in a Devon Achane, and you have a good opportunity coming into this game now as it's confirmed both Matt Milano and Ed Oliver will be missing from this matchup and will not be playing for the defense in Buffalo. This is a good chance to really try to get the run game going. Miami right now, as it currently stands, 27 total run plays through weeks 1 and 2. That is the lowest in the NFL, and the next closest team is Cincinnati with only 40 rushing attempts. So getting the ball going on the ground, trying to get your running game involved a little bit more and just trying to keep the ball away and out of Josh Allen's hands is probably your best bet of winning this football game. It's going to be tough on defense. I can imagine Buffalo kind of having their way. So just limiting their possessions, limiting your opportunity to give the football away. Tua's had a tough time with picks so far this season. I think whatever you can do to limit Buffalo's potential output is probably in your best interest offensively. Now, on the flip side, when you look at what Buffalo brings to the table in this game here, like I said, the defense has not looked great, and I think you have a really good opportunity from Buffalo's end to just kind of torch Miami, whether it's on the ground or through the air, because Buffalo's won both of their games in two wildly different manners to this point. Game one, it was all about Josh Allen putting the team on his back, throwing the football with his arm. He tossed for nearly 400 yards passing at 394 in that week number 1 win over the Ravens. And then last week, it was all about the ground game. Buffalo ran for 224 total yards on the ground in week number 2. So this really is a matter of like Buffalo kind of picking their poison and seeing what works best against Miami. You look at what the secondary looks like right now currently. They're already not necessarily the strongest group, and they're going to be a little bit thin in this matchup. You could very well see Josh Allen just literally put the ball in his hands and just dice up the secondary. Or they lean on James Cook, who has had a phenomenal season to this point here, is earning every single dollar that came his way that he was holding out for during the offseason. And like realistically speaking, if Josh Allen doesn't come out in this game with like 3, maybe 4 touchdowns himself in some combination of passing touchdowns to rushing touchdowns, I would personally be pretty surprised just because of the state that we've seen this Miami defense in, how good Josh Allen has looked, and just how balanced this offense in Buffalo has looked overall. They can beat you any number of which way, and that's surely going to be a problem there. I do think that with Miami's defense the way it is and just how things have looked, it really just comes down to, like I said, the ball control from Miami. They've got to limit what damage Josh Allen is able to do with the football in his hands. If you're giving Josh Allen 10, 11 drives on offense, you are not doing a good job, because that means they're probably killing you defensively and you're not getting anything done on offense yourself. So control the football, lean on your running back room, try to see if you can maybe take advantage of some of the key injuries that Buffalo is going to have in the run defense department. Again, Ed Oliver and Matt Milano, 2 important pieces to the middle of that defense, from the defensive line to the linebacking room right behind them. There is your weakness. There is your opportunity. Test Buffalo. See what you can do there. Get your ground game going. Open up the passing game, force the defense to come in a little bit closer, and ultimately try and beat them over top with the big splash plays that you know Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are both clearly still capable of doing. It's just a matter of getting those opportunities, and I think by challenging the Buffalo Bills on the ground early, there is an actual chance for the Dolphins here. That being said, as for who I think is going to win this game, I would be lying to you if I thought it was anything besides Buffalo. Again, it's any given, I guess in this case, Thursday, but the whole any given Sunday thing still applies here. Anything can obviously happen in the NFL. You never really know. There's a lot of do or die right now for the Miami Dolphins as a whole. And I would argue not even just for Mike McDaniel, but even Tua himself. It has not been perfect since he has signed that contract extension with Miami. And so there is definitely a realm of possibility where changes beyond just Mike McDaniel are made for this team in the foreseeable future. So I think there's a lot of do or die for a lot of people on this football team. But as it stands right now, we have seen 2 very, very different teams in the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins right now. Unfortunately, the Dolphins are kind of living up to the dark cloud that was hanging over them going into this season, and the Buffalo Bills have lived up to all the hype and then some that were riding with them going into the season. So I'll take Buffalo, very handed victory, 38-17, and something tells me that early Friday morning, we're hearing about Mike McDaniel sent packing, and one of the 2 coordinators, like I said, Frank Smith, Anthony Weaver, one of the 2 are going to be stepping in as interim head coach going forward. So we'll see what happens, but that's kind of where my head is at for Thursday Night Football. As always, comment down below. Let me hear from you. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Fire away. Let me hear from you. Anything else maybe you have your eye on in this matchup here, but like I said, I think this one's kind of cut and dry. Anything can happen, but it feels like a pretty cut and dry outcome. I would be legitimately shocked if we're not staring at a Bills win come Friday morning. So let me hear from you. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. Rest of predictions will drop on Friday afternoon. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out. But until then, I will see you all next time.